started. Okay, here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's everyone doing today? It is Friday afternoon at a little bit later than normal. This is 3:30 Eastern Time, 3:39 Eastern Time. I don't usually come on this late on this channel. I want to tell a little story here for those of you that that don't know things about me or have just found the channel, or for those of you that have been watching the channel for the last couple of years, because there's a kind of a creation story to my channel that wasn't really to my channel. It's kind of the things that led up to it, and they're really 5 discrete events that at the time seemed like very small things, because they were. But they turned out to be monumental decisions. And I think about these things often because of when you are trying to do new things in your life. It's important to think about these things, that these small decisions can turn into massively big changes in your life, radically change the course of your life. Before I get started, discount code for my Beato book, YouTube, Instagram transcription bundle is RB500. It's we're having a Labor Day sale, so it's 50% off that. You want to support the channel, that's a way to do it. You can become a member of the Beato Club. You can do a bunch of different things, but that's pretty much how I support the channel is selling things through my store. Since most of my videos are, not most of them, but a lot of them are demonetized. And this one, I will make sure I take off the mid-roll ads as soon as it's done. Billy, remind me to do that. Okay. People that have been watching my channel from the beginning know about the musician named Aiden Essen. Aiden was somebody that I met after I finished my undergrad degree at Ithaca College in upstate New York, and I got into grad school in Boston at New England Conservatory. This is back in 1984. So when I went there, I had a roommate that was a buddy of mine that I played a lot of duo guitar gigs, who went to Cornell when I was in Ithaca. He moved to Boston. We got a place together in Waltham, and I took the train in. I said to Eric, that's his name. He's actually now, he passed away about 10 years ago or so. But I said to him, I'm going to take the train in and go check out where New England is. So I take the 30-minute train ride. I get off at the T stop. I get off at the T stop near Berkeley, which is still there. And New England Conservatory is about probably 3 blocks from there or so. A 10-minute walk at the most. But you have to walk right by Berkeley. The same Berkeley that's still there now. By the way, that discount code goes for the ear training course as well. RB 500, 30% off. I forgot to say that, sorry. Anyway, so I get off the train, I start walking, and there was a cafe across the street from Berkeley called Cafe Bouquet. It's now a Starbucks. As a matter of fact, when I went to do a talk at Berkeley in February, I went into that Starbucks. And every time I go to Boston, I go to Berkeley. When I walk into that Starbucks, I always think of walking into Cafe Bouquet that one day, that one big thing that changed my life. I heard a band playing. There was a bunch of Berkeley students outside. And those of you that have been watching the channel a long time know this story, but this is part of a 5-part story here. So I walk in, and there's this group playing, 4-piece group, saxophone, bass, drums, and keyboards. And the sax player was taking a solo, and it was unbelievable. Obviously a Berkeley kid. I figured these were all Berkeley students, and he was phenomenal. I'd never heard anyone play like this. I'm coming from Ithaca, New York, Ithaca College, small town, but I had a graduate assistantship and everything at NEC. And I thought, oh my, yeah, I can play them, hot stuff. And then I hear this and I thought, wow, this is unbelievable. So he takes a solo, then it goes over to this keyboard player with a big afro. And he plays this thing that just absolutely blew my mind. Never heard anything like it. Took this solo that just took my head off. And I was like, what is this? Well, I didn't know who this was, but I walked out of there stunned and ended up going to NEC, came back, saw my roommate Eric at the time. He's like, did you go into NEC? I said, yeah. I said, man, I stopped by this place, Cafe Bouquet, across the street from Berkeley. It was middle of the afternoon, and there I saw this piano player. There's piano player, sax player. This jazz group just blew my mind. These guys were phenomenal. He said, who were they? I said, I have no idea. I think they're Berkeley students. But this piano player, I just never heard anything like it. It was not jazz. It was this just mind-boggling thing. And I said, I'm going to go back there tomorrow and find this guy. So I go back to Berkeley the next day, take the train in, go to Berkeley, and I go through all the practice rooms. I went through about 300 practice rooms looking through the windows. And finally, I hear the sound. I heard the playing. It was like, that's got to be it. And I look in through the window, and I saw the big afro, and he's just playing with a bass player and drummer there. So I wait till they're done. I knock on the door. I go in. I introduce myself. I said, man, I was at your show yesterday across the street, and it just blew my mind. What's your name? He says, my name's Aydin. And he had a strong accent. I said, where are you from? He said, Turkey. So Aydin and I became friends. We started hanging out. We started playing together. And Aydin is the greatest musician that I've ever met to this day. As a matter of fact, 30 years later, before my son Dylan was born, the whole idea of playing this really complex music for Dylan, which is why I believe Dylan has perfect pitch and just such a developed ear, is because I only played him Aydin's improvisations from 1986 through 1988. Things that I had made recordings of, just solo piano stuff, all different kinds of things. So this thing was, I had the idea, if a baby listened to this, to Aydin's improvisations, would it sound normal to them? Well, not only does it sound normal to them, but it, I believe, changed Dylan's brain to where he can hear all the stuff that Aydin played, the polytonality, the incredible melodic ideas that I've never to this day heard anybody improvise like. I'm going to make a video on Aydin and talk about that. But Aydin changed the way I see music, and I learned more from him than I ever learned from any teachers at any of the places I went, including New England Conservatory or anywhere. One person taught me more about music, about harmony, improvisation, everything. And he was my age. He's actually two weeks younger than me. And we're still in touch. And I'm going to make a video about him, a dedicated video. So that's one of the things that changed my life. That one decision to go in there and take the train in just to go see where NEC was. Had that gig not happened, had I gone an hour later, I wouldn't have been there. Who knows if I would have ever seen him. But the impression that gig made on me, and by the way, the sax player was a guy named Donnie McCaslin. Donnie McCaslin is one of the best saxophone players out there today, and he was just a student. So I saw two of the greatest musicians on their instruments on this one gig, just randomly across the street from Berkeley, that were both Berkeley students. Aydin ended up going to NEC with me, and he got his master's degree when I was getting my master's degree. But that sent me off. After I graduated there, I went on and became a college professor back at Ithaca, New York, in the same room that I was a student in 2 years before. So then that happened. So I'm teaching at Ithaca, and then the next event happened, which was this guy, Alan, was walking by this place called Simeon's in Ithaca, where I was just playing a solo guitar gig on a Sunday night, playing my classical guitar. I had a steady gig there. And Alan walks by and he's like, hey, you mind if I go get my bass and come sit in? I was like, no, go ahead. So he walks down to his apartment or whatever, comes back with a little bass amp and his bass. He sits down. I mean, Alan wasn't really a jazz player, but it was a relief to have a second person there to kind of take up the slack because it was really difficult to play solo guitar. So Alan, we ended up playing a lot for the next 6 months or so. And then one day Alan says to me, hey, I've got some songs I want you to hear. Why don't you come by my place before the gig? So I go by Alan's place, and he plays me a few songs. I said, whoa, these are amazing. He was a singer, songwriter. It's like, yeah, I'm making a demo next week. I want you to play on it. I was like, yeah, I don't play rock anymore. I don't even have an electric guitar. I mean, I had an electric guitar, but it was a jazz guitar. He's like, no, just come over and play on this thing. I have a guitar you can play. I got a Telecaster. Okay, fine. So I reluctantly go over and do it. I play on these 5 songs or so and don't think anything of it. 2 weeks later, he calls me up. He's like, I just got this call from the vice president of Elektra Records. He wants us to sign. He wants to sign us to a demo deal. I said, what do you mean us? What? He's like, yeah. He's going to give us $5,000 and he wants us to demo 8 songs. I said, $5,000? I mean, this is a lot of money. It was insane, right? I was like, and I said, do you have any more songs? No, I don't have any more songs. We have to write more songs. I was like, well, I don't know how to write songs. I mean, I never really wrote songs at that time. So Alan then was like, this is how you write songs. And we make this demo, and that ended up leading to me eventually in 1992 leaving my teaching gig after 5 years. Now, 6 years would have been tenure. I was 30 years old. My parents thought I was nuts that I was quitting my college teaching gig because I wanted to go and try and start a band. The thing with Alan ended up nothing happened with that, although we did sign a publishing deal with Polygram. So I embarked on a year-long trip all over the place. I went to England, I went to Amsterdam, I went to Chicago, Denver, New York City, Nashville, and I'd stay for a couple months at each of these places. And I stayed in New York longer than that, trying to find a scene that I thought was cool. So eventually I said, you know what, I'm just going to move to Austin, Texas. So I get in my car and I'm driving from Nashville down here. I go through Atlanta. I said, my old roommate, Doug, he's a lawyer here in town. It's about 11 o'clock. I'm going to give him a call, see if he's free for lunch. So I call him up from a payphone. I was like, Doug, it's Rick. Rick, what are you doing? I said, I'm in town. He said, what? I was like, yeah, I'm in town. He says, where are you? I said, I'm at the Lenox Mall, something like that, right in front of Tower Records. He's like, man, my office is right across the street. I said, okay. He goes, you see that black building? I said, yeah. He goes, that's my office. Great. Can I come over now? He's like, yeah, come on over. So I get in my car and I drive over to Doug's office. I go up there. First thing Doug says is, we got to go have lunch right now because you have a gig tonight. I said, what do you mean I have a gig tonight? I'm leaving town. I'm heading to Austin. No. I got you a gig tonight playing bass in this cover band. So he had called this guy, Francisco, buddy of his, to get me to play his whole scheme. And I'm still friends. I talked to Doug today. All right. Doug and I were roommates in 1983. We met in 1981 at Ithaca. He went to Ithaca College, but he got his law degree here. And they made the scheme to get Rick to play a bunch of cover gigs so that he can stay in town here. So I played that cover gig with Fran. Then I was like going to leave the next day. No. Just move your stuff in. I have an empty room here. So there was all these musicians living in this house. So I ended up playing about 10 gigs that first week. And then that was it. I was here. Now, had I not stopped, this is the next decision. Had I not stopped to call Doug, let's say I left at a different time and it wasn't lunchtime and I didn't decide to drive through Atlanta. I didn't even have to drive through Atlanta. Had I not stopped and Doug not done that, I wouldn't be here right now, right? Because everything flowed from that. I ended up getting a record deal. I became a producer, everything. And I met my wife. I had my kids, everything. That one phone call, and Doug making a phone call to his friend Francisco to get me to stay, that ended up being everything right there. The thing with Iden is that Iden gave me all this knowledge that I never would have had if I had not met him that day. And then armed with all that knowledge, I get out of there. I learn to write songs. I come down here. It took me a couple years. I got it. I found a band that I started. I taught guitar lessons in a local music store. After I was a college professor, I went and I taught beginner guitar lessons, 50 students a week, teaching Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, everything. It was the early 90s, you know? And I did that until my band got signed. But one of the things that happened before my band got signed is that a buddy called me. Oh, I'm going to give you my discount code here. This is how I support the channel before I go on. RB500. If you want to support the channel and you believe in the content here, my ear training course, 30% off, and my Beato book, YouTube, Instagram transcription bundle, and follow me on Instagram at RickBeato1. Do a lot of guitar stuff there. I made a video about it yesterday. You should definitely check out, but that's how I support the channel. Go to rickbeato.com. The thing's in the description. So I'm driving around. It's 1995, and this guy, Danny, one of my good friends, calls me up. He's like, hey, we're working on some songs over in my mom's basement, and do you mind coming over and helping us with that? I said, no, stop by. So I stopped by, and they have an ADAT set up, and it's this band. He was in a band called the Tender Idols. And they're working on a tune, and I listened to it and everything. He says, what do you think? I said, well, I think the melody should be this. And I sang them a totally different melody. You should leave a break here, come in with this. And I basically rewrote the verse melody. He said, that's amazing. And I said, well, then for the chorus, I would do this. So then the next day, Danny was like, do you want to come and finish producing the record? And I said, sure. I don't know anything about producing, but I'll do that. In his band, eventually, was a guy named Dave Cobb, who's a Grammy Award-winning producer that produced Chris Stapleton, produced Jason Isbell. Dave was in the Tender Idols later, like right after that, on the second record I worked with them on. That's how I began my production career. It was Danny calling me up and going, hey, you want to come over to my mom's basement? We're working on some songs. And just getting there, just randomly, had I not answered the phone, yeah, maybe I would have gotten into production eventually. But that one thing was like, okay, this is how you make records. Now, I'd done recording and everything, but I never thought of myself as a producer. But eventually, when my record deal, when the things went south in the music business and we lost our record deal just after our record had come out with my band, we made a disastrous record. Then I went on and became a full-time music producer. That was really like I kind of mixed in steps 2 and 3 here, right? So then starting a band and becoming a producer was all part of that. That's kind of the fourth thing. There's the staying in Atlanta. There's the leaving teaching. I mean, started by meeting Iden, leaving teaching, then driving around and finally ending up in Atlanta, then starting a band and becoming a producer. So I became a full-time music producer in 1999. And I produced about 700 and some odd records or so, about the same amount of videos that I've made for this channel here in the last 4 years. One of the bands that came in here was this guy Carl that had a guitar player named Rhett Shull in it. Now, in 2015, I put out a video with me and Dylan that was massively viral on Facebook, 22 million views, with 3 separate uploads on Facebook. It was my friend Shane put it on his channel, and he's a country musician. He got 18 million views there, 3 million on mine, and another couple million, a couple other places. Just separate, completely separate things. But, you know, I was trying to do stuff on Facebook, but nothing really happened. And then Rhett came in. After this record with Carl, Rhett started coming in and interning in the studio. But for years, this wasn't like a thing where Rhett came in and was interning, and the second week he said, why don't you start a YouTube channel? 3 years after he was interning here, one day he came in and he said, I think you should start a YouTube channel. I was like, what? Nobody's going to watch me on YouTube. I'm not a white-haired guy. He's like, no, I think so. And he came in, and you guys know the rest of that story, that he made my channel trailer for me. He taught me how to use a camera. He's still teaching me how to use my camera. Every time I still don't quite know how to use it. It's always set with however Rhett set it up with last. But I just started uploading then in the summer of 2016. It was about a month after my mom passed away. And that decision to start making those YouTube videos was another decision that dramatically changed my life. These are all small things. A phone call to a college roommate, getting off the T stop in Boston and walking to the college I'm going to go, and just randomly seeing a group play in the middle of the afternoon and seeing a crowd outside. What's going on there? I'm going to go in there and look at it, right? Or my buddy Danny calling me up, hey, come on, we're recording in my mom's basement. Why don't you come on over, and love to get your opinion on the song we're working on. Okay, cool. I became a music producer from that one phone call. I never thought about it. These seemingly insignificant things can dramatically change your life. If you think about it, if you have a job, you're a music professor, right? You're 5 years into your thing. This is, 1992. And you can either stay. Had I stayed at Ithaca, I still would be a professor there. I wouldn't be retired yet. I probably retired at 65. I'm 58. But I'd have 30 some odd years. And oh my God, frightening to think, actually, right? But I easily could have stayed. No problem. I'd still be teaching my classes, all this stuff, right? Or you could get fired. That's another option. Or you can decide to do something else with your life and take a chance. These are kind of, it's not just that. It's also looking back upon things and recognizing when opportunities present themselves. Because that is really a big part of this. And thank you, everybody, for the super chat. This is amazing. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, I really, really, really appreciate that. I think that people getting out of their comfort zone, that has always been, most of the people that I talk to, and honestly, with what's going on right now with, with people that can't gig, I have people that call me all the time, well-known musicians that ask me about how do I do YouTube, how do I do Instagram, how do I spin up social media? And it's tough. It's very, very difficult to do. But if you're determined, you can do it. And that is the biggest thing. That's the most difficult thing for people, is to actually stay focused. I was a really bad student in high school. Looking back, and I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, and we were talking about ADHD. I'm sure I had it. I could not focus on anything. You guys see me shake all the time. I'm shaking my legs. I'm just have so much nervous energy all the time. And I had a terrible time focusing. Oh my God, I was a D- student in high school. And it really started when I was a small kid. I could not focus on what they were teaching because I was not interested. And luckily I had a mom that would say, they don't know how to teach you. My dad didn't say that, but my mom did. She always stuck up for me. Oh, Rick, they don't know how to teach you. You're smarter than they are. She'd always say that. I'd be like, yeah, you're right, Mom. Until she made my brother Lou. We were talking about this the other night, laughing. My two older brothers, Lou he's a math professor. He's actually a computer engineering professor. And my parents made him tutor me to pass the algebra final, right? If I didn't pass it with 100, I would have failed the class and I would have had to take summer school. So my dad's like, teach that kid. And my brother Lou's like, he's so stupid. He can't figure this out. We were laughing so hard. I had my sisters on. We were all video chatting and just cracking up at this because everyone had gotten 100. I have 6 siblings. Everyone had gotten 100 on their algebra final until it got to me, and I had a 38 the first marking period, then 42, then like 72, and my brother was just complaining about how I couldn't get it, and looking back on it, I was just so not interested in it. I can't help it. But when I started playing the guitar, it was like, I love this, and I can focus on it 24 hours a day, and that's all I thought about. I just thought about music, and I never stopped. I just love it. It is it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me, was discovering music. And then having parents that actually were incredibly encouraging for that. And if your parents aren't encouraging for that, I'm here to encourage you. All right? I'll be the substitute person to encourage you on this stuff. So, anyways, this is these are lessons that are really important, I think, to take in. Not just from me. Everyone has moments like this that they should reflect on in their life. I think it's really important. It's always important to think about where you're going by looking at where you've been and the things that have worked. Even in the short term, I made a video yesterday that I put out that I thought was a good video, but nobody else thought it was a good video here because I couldn't quite find a title that made sense for it. It's a guitar teaching video, and I don't do a lot of straight teaching videos, but it was a really good video with a really bad title that YouTube decided they weren't going to push, right? But there's nothing you can do about that. My hope is that people will discover that video maybe after this or something, right? Or maybe they'll go discover my Instagram channel where I play guitar every day on, right? In addition to watching things on here. But it's really about thinking about this stuff and being... I just think it's so important to kind of constantly look at your decisions you're making and recognize when you've reached one of those forks in the road and going back and looking on it. And I'm just so thankful to look back on those things. Yeah, maybe I would have gone to Austin, Texas, and I'd have a totally different life, but I love this life. I don't know any other life. Maybe I would have had a terrible life. You never know. You don't know. I'm going to, RB 500. This is how I support the channel. If you believe in what I do here and you want to support it, I don't do any sponsorships or anything with any companies. I'm not against that or anything. And I take the mid-roll ads out because it's incredibly annoying. Billy, please remind me to take them out. Take them out when we're done with this, okay? God, I hate that. The 15 mid-roll ads. Anyways, and I apologize. And those of you that get those, if you see them on my old videos, get an ad blocker. Now, YouTube will realize that I'm telling people to get an ad blocker, and they'll probably try to not push this video now because I said that word. But share this video with your friends, okay, so that they can't do anything about that. RB 500. The Beato book, Instagram transcription bundle, 650-page PDF, or my ear training course. That's 30% off on that, 50% off on the YouTube Beato book transcription bundle. That's my story for today. It's an important story to me. I hope it was a good story for you guys. Labor Day is coming up on Monday. I'm going to probably take off through Monday. I don't usually take off I don't know. I've never taken off 4 days in a row. Maybe I won't. But I'm going to, I've got some interesting videos coming up that I've been working on, some cool stuff, like really interesting ideas. You guys are the best. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in there. And we'll talk soon. Okay. We'll see you.